This podcast is sponsored by Kulabola, that creates simple and very advanced websites, as well as creating fantastic animation. If you or someone you know is looking to start or update their websites, we're offering a genuine 20% discount with the code AWAKENING. Just go to Coolabola, COOLABULLA.com, and the links are in the podcast description.
Welcome to the Awakening Podcast. You can find all our episodes on awakeningpodcast.org. We're also on BitChute, and we're not on YouTube because we got kicked off that, but I've got other podcasts, the Speaking Podcast, Learn Polish Podcast, Meditation Podcast, and the Crypto Podcast, and all can be found on mycon.com. Today, my guest, another traveler, because I'm Irish living in Poland. This gentleman has been around the world as well. Please welcome Wajid Hassan.
Hey, Roy. Good to be on your show.
So I know you're a number one best-selling author, comedian, and an actor, and I've seen some of your clips, which are very good. So you might just introduce yourself fully to the audience.
I was actually born in Pakistan. My parents moved to England when I was 3 years old, and we traveled by bus and train across, different countries and across the Channel, and then my earlier life, I spent in the north of England, near Manchester, till the age of 10. And then we moved to London, went to high school in London, in the East End of London, which was a rough part of town. I got my formal education there, got into the technical field, worked as a field service engineer for a large company, traveling around southern England. And then I moved to the United States, to Los Angeles, permanently back in 87, and then lived in LA for over 32 years. Got out of the technical industry, worked there as a field service engineer as well, and then decided to get into the entertainment field. Was a union actor for over 20 years, doing voiceover commercials, small parts in movies and sitcoms. And then just recently, I wrote a book in August of 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, called The Struggle for World Sanity, which you mentioned, was a bestseller. And since then, I've been promoting some aspects of the book on different media channels, and currently based in Raleigh, North Carolina, and speaking to you in real time to Poland, which I find very exciting.
No, that's great, and you have good quality camera for those listening. When you tune into the video, you can see very good camera work as well. So you might tell me about the book. What kind of inspired you to start writing about it?
Well, it's really interesting, Roy. That it took a little while to publish, but finally, a friend of mine kept pushing me because I wrote it, and it was just laying there doing nothing. And then it happened in the middle of the pandemic. Wasn't planned that way, but I've always had metaphysics, new age concepts, spirituality, healing. I've always kind of, I had to earn a living like everybody else, but that was a kind of a side thing that I did, following my own yogi master, an Englishman by the name of Dr. George King, for over 40 years, and his organization, the Ethereal Society. And I would support them and do voluntary work, but I didn't openly express some of the truths I learned, some of the experiences I had with my yogi master. And so I decided to put them in a book. And considering the situation of the world right now, the timing was good, because there is a struggle for world sanity going on right now. And the main thing I wanted to do was to offer, your listeners or anybody who read the book, a glimpse of hope, inspiration, a light at the end of the tunnel. And it doesn't seem right now, the situation going on doesn't seem very hopeful, but things will, not might, will change in the centuries to come. There is hope for planet Earth and mankind.
So you say the centuries to come. What about the weeks and years to come? Because I'm not concerned about the centuries. I'm more concerned sooner.
Yeah, we if we understand the law of karma, action and reaction being opposite and equal, the master Jesus said, as you sow, so shall you reap. And the Lord Buddha said, action, reaction is opposite and equal. The conditions on this planet is something that we on a collective mankind have created. We've only ourselves to blame. Metaphysically speaking, we're all connected. We're all, whether we like it or not. I don't particularly like the fact that I'm my brother's keeper. But again, another aspect of writing the book was to bring out certain spiritual truths, certain cosmic truths that people are not aware of. And one aspect that's been really pushed right now by the people who contacted my own yogi master is to reintroduce the truth of the law of reincarnation, which has been suppressed. It's very interesting. A lot of Christian scholars recently have been coming forward based on their own research that reincarnation was actually taught in the Christian church over 700 years ago. And they deliberately took it out in order to create this one life and then keep control of the masses. Like either you do what we tell you or you're condemned to purgatory or hell. And so if people understand the law of reincarnation, a lot of the conditions that are occurring on this planet right now would not exist. First of all, there would be no such thing as racial pride or belonging to this one race or this one country. People will understand that we belong to all races, we belong to all cultures, we belong to all religions, and that reincarnation is to me is a fact. First of all, Roy, it answers the so-called inequalities that are occurring today on planet. Why is somebody born rich? Why is a child born with cancer? Why is another child a piano prodigy by the age of 3? It answers all the so-called inequalities which the religious elders can't answer. And reincarnation answers that. And people will be very careful going into war if they knew that their brother or sister or father or mother, that they were going again, could have been in their last life, that they were going to go to war. And this recent stupidity, between with Russia and Ukraine shows exactly how ignorant people are in regards to, race, being this country or that country. What they're really doing is hurting themselves. By murdering somebody, you just bring the whole race down. If you heal and uplift somebody, you bring the whole race up. So that was another aspect that I wanted to reintroduce, the fact that in these days, because of the push of the Aquarian age, astrologically, it's pushing mankind to start opening themselves up on a universal approach, more cooperation. And it just seems that the more we try to do that, there's also, I believe, there's the forces of darkness or evil that are just as much trying to suppress this. And I think right now with what's going on, again, the murderous aspect of war has been unleashed, and people are gaining a lot of profit. People behind the scenes are gaining a lot of profit economically from war. I think there was an American military guy who I think he wrote a book called War is a Racket. And if people understand that the only people who suffer are the innocent, people will think twice, about going to war. It just seems our history has been filled with violence and terror and suffering. And I think a lot of this has been planned over the centuries by people behind the scenes who have power and who want to keep mankind under their control, and using fear and intimidation and murder and violence seems to be the norm. But those things will change, and they are changing right now. If people just open themselves up to higher inspiration, higher intuition, and start listening to their voice of conscience instead of being molded and hypnotized by the media and people in power.
Absolutely. And the book Confessions of Economic Hitman by John Perkins, I think his name, like he's talking about how, the Americans are going in, taking over different countries and putting their people in place. And like, as you mentioned, like what's going on at the moment, there's a lot behind the screen. Like everything that's being shown on the television is a lie, and people are regurgitating that, and they're just putting fear. Like I've had a few conversations today, and there's people seriously living in fear now. They're really worried. And, like it's the vibrations. I don't let it fear me. It is what it is. And like, I suppose, you mentioned, you're studying 40 years with the yogi. You must have noticed that the amount of people that have kind of, let's call it, awakened or are more conscious of what's going on. It's unbelievable now in the last few years compared to previously.
I definitely agree with you, Roy. I think there is a great awakening. And I say that because astrologically, we're being pushed that way. The vibrations are being raised. Also, people need to understand that the planet that we live on now, indigenous tribes around the world known for centuries that we live on a living, breathing goddess, the Mother Earth, who's actually a living entity. And she has held up her evolution, and higher forces have deemed necessary now that she raise her vibrations. So don't believe all this rubbish about climate change being carbon emissions. The ionosphere, the ice caps melting, a lot of that has to do with the Mother Earth raising her vibrations, so that in the years to come, the 4 seasons will actually be one. There won't be any spring, summer, autumn, winter. There'll be an ambient temperature around the planet. So a lot of these climatic changes are part of the Mother Earth changing her vibrations. So I totally agree with you. There is an awakening. People are open. Even the people of Russia are just appalled. They live under a dictatorship in a way, but they're coming on the streets and saying this. No, and it goes back to the spiritual principles I was talking about, not the religious principles, but the spiritual principles taught by the great masters like Jesus and Buddha and Krishna and other great masters who came to this planet. Spiritual laws like, well, part of thou shalt not kill. Don't you understand? And love thy neighbor as thyself. I mean, these are basic laws which which have been turned around by politicians, by religious leaders, by the people who control the economy, by the generals, and turned around in order to create lies in order for people to go into war and create this mass. And I came back to the fact that yes, we look around the world, right, and there's endless wars, there's hatred between races and religions. There's an economic system that's so archaic that favors the rich. Billionaires are looked upon as gods, and the rest are in slavery. We do have pollution. We have pollution we have overpopulation as a pollution. We have basic pollution, and all these things can be rectified because we have created those conditions. We're wanting ourselves to blame. And the only solution to this, Roy, is what my yogi master said is a spiritual solution. And that has not been tried. And the spiritual solution is the fact that we are actually spiritual beings in physical bodies. It's not the other way around. We have an aura, we have psychic centers, and we are not using energies of high inspiration. We're not sending these energies out. We're just using our basic energies to regress into war and famine and all these basic things. And so it's time that one time we were actually extremely advanced technically and spiritually, but certain civilizations that we belong to went under in atomic wars in the past, and they say history repeats itself. So we've come to a scenario again where the world could be in jeopardy of World War III, and people need to be aware that we're just being manipulated, we're being molded, and it's time to open ourselves to higher inspiration and send this tangible spiritual energy. It's the same energy that Jesus used to raise the dead and heal the blind and make cure the lepers. It's the same physical energy, the spiritual energy. Just like electricity operates on a different frequency, this operates on a more subtle frequency, but it's very tangible. And the call to action these days is to send out the light, the white light, and send it out to the world. Because, you talked about vibrations, the vibration of fear. Thoughts are real. Just because we can't see them doesn't mean that they're not there. You can send a hate thought to somebody, and that brownish red thought form will actually pierce the other person's aura, damage their aura, which will affect their physical body. So all these thoughts right now in social media and the press, creating this fear and this hatred and anxiety and depression and fear, these are actually, again, choking the mind belt of our planet. And we, on a collective, through prayer and meditation, sending out this energy, have to transmute this foul mind energy that we've created, which again, is causing a lot of not only physical discomfort, but also mental and psychic discomfort. So we have the tools now. Again, another reason of writing the book is that we have basic, simple tools now that we can transform the world. All the other things have been tried. None of them have worked. No politician has ever created peace. The only people who've created peace are the people who are the spiritually minded people of any race, color, creed, religion. You don't even have to believe in a divine being. All you have to do is just send out the light. We have psychic senses in the palm of our hand from our heart center. We send out this white light through thought, and it will create. It doesn't destroy, it builds, it transmutes. And that's the call of action. One of the main reasons of writing the book was to hopefully inspire people that we have natural faculties that we have not been using. And when we start using that, we shall start evolving back to what we used to be at one time. So, we're really involved in many, many ways.
And you mentioned about the words that you can send bad words and bad vibrations. Like some people might be listening to this going, that's crazy or whatever. But there's been experiments done I've seen it with rice in a jar, and I've seen it in a school with plants. And there's also a guy that actually froze molecules with different sound waves and everything. And basically, if you talk hatred to the rice or the plant, it dies. And the ones that you give all love and give beautiful words, it flourishes. And the same with when they were doing the ice molecules. It was a Japanese guy and I have the book there, and you see all the different pictures, and it was like, it looks so beautiful with words of love and positivity, as opposed to the opposite. You can see it's all destructive. And when you consider we're all electricity, we're all water, the molecules. So if you can even just look at the water, and if the water in your body behaves exactly like you look at the pictures on that, you can understand why it's so bad. I mean, like for me, I don't create hatred. I mean, I think we've all been through our own little journeys, but what I've learned is the best thing that I've done, I started getting into meditation, is the act of forgiveness. Because if I'm actually hating somebody, because loads of people have been affected financially, people have in business or in relationships have robbed them, and they just carry that hatred. And the memory of pain poisons us. It's in our own cells. And if you're wishing that out, you're actually attracting it to yourself as well. And the best thing is to actually just think positivity. And I don't know, your life seems to be better. The amount of things that happen, because you'll always hear, I mean, what I see is there's so many people that you talk to, and they're constantly having problems in their life, but yet they're the ones that are watching the horror movies. There's the ones that are constantly, putting down other people and saying negative and concentrating on the CNN media, that corruption, instead of looking on the beauty of life. Because it's like the karma thing, what you think of and what you give out, it comes back to you.
Yeah, and people are illogical, because if you send out spiritual energy, if you send out spiritual light, by law you will get that spiritual energy and spiritual light back. And so you send out hate, you're going to get hate back. That's why I stay neutral when it comes to politics. Even when it comes to war, I'm not going to show hatred to the other side, because the other side is just the same as we are. They're just being molded by darker forces. And so on a collective, if we send a little interruption from my little kitty here.
We've got an extra guest.
But I guess she wants to be part of it, part of the podcast. So on a collective, instead of arming one side to shoot bombs and bullets to the other side, that's just going to create more damage, more hatred. And so, on a collective, instead of people, protesting and shouting and screaming in anger, if they just went within, raise their voice, raise their arms, and on a collective, they send out this energy. Like you said, there's overwhelming evidence. I mean, you just pointed out what the power of healing and what the power of love can actually do, just because everything on this planet is living. Everything that the walls, everything is vibrating. It's living. And so everything reacts to this universal love, which comes from the sun, comes from the cosmos. And so we need to channel that energy and center it onto planet Earth. And we need to transform these dark forces behind the scenes, because unfortunately, whether we like it or not, we're still part of them. And so it's our responsibility not to destroy them with hatred or bombs, but to transmute it with this energy of love. And love in its highest form, it just recreates itself to the point where it's so powerful that it will transmute anything that comes up against it. And so even the opposite of hate is love, and it will transform, it will bring peace to a war situation. And so, considering what's happening right now, that's the only solution that can be applied at this particular time, because nothing else is going to work.
And like you mentioned at the start about the reincarnation, and I've seen things where young children were able to remember like what happened to them. Like I remember one had been murdered, he was able to find the body and everything. They were saying this is impossible, that he's done it. So it kind of in itself kind of proved it. But there's so many people that go through that. But if you look at, I mean, the amount of families that are running, I mean, there's supposed to be like 13 families, and then you've got all these, the Club of Rome and all these different groups that we know they're negative entities. But if it was a case that then they, after they pass, they then are born in India, they're then born in Africa, where all their assets are being taken from the thing, and they were conscious of that, how would they actually want to destroy any nation?
Exactly. My yogi master said, he said a lot of the people who are hungry and starving have to learn these lessons, because he said, based on his research, in a past life, they could have been very rich, very powerful, but very selfish individuals. And, the law of karma doesn't punish. It's not a punishing law. It's a teacher. And sometimes pain is a very hard teacher. And exactly, if you have been rich or in power, in a previous life, and have not, done anything to help humanity, you could come back in a very extremely famine-stricken area, or in extreme poverty. Again, not to punish you, but to teach you that you don't do these things. And so, Unfortunately, that is the situation. When we die, we again, there's no punishing God, but when we die, my yogi master said that, well, based on even on Hindu and Buddhist teachings, that there are higher realms of existence, lower realms of existence, and we go according to our vibrational sequence. So if we've been a murderer, or a warmonger, we go to those realms that we deserve. And so there's a lot of those people in these lower realms right now, and there's also people who can, by certain black magic rituals, hold up their reincarnation. And there are forces of darkness in these lower realms that have tremendous amount of power, that are trying to mentally enslave the human race. The human race is just pawns on a chess game, and of course there's higher ascended beings who are trying to stop this. And so again, we're in a very precarious situation. And so instead of looking down at our iPhone, we need to look up to the higher inspirations, to the higher beings who are actually trying to help mankind, and tune into that light. They're sending beams of energy to us even as we speak. We just have to telepathically think about the higher vibrational energies, and they will be sent down to us. And the thing is, right, it's so simple that it goes over people's head. It's not rocket science. We're asked to send out power, asked to send out healing. People just don't get it. It's that simple. If people did like 10, 15 minutes of that a day en masse, we could see a total transformation of humanity in maybe 10, 15 years, guaranteed. Absolutely guaranteed.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, the game of chess, and if you look at the black and white board, I mean, the demonic Masonic groups, they're kind of into the black and white flooring. And I firmly believe that if we did not allow these organizations to even exist, because by having them, they have all these Bilderberg groups and all this different thing, as if they're looking out for humanity, they're doing the opposite. So you just stop it. You just don't allow these things to even exist. And that in itself don't put these people together in such powerful positions.
Yeah, I mean, the people who live under dictatorships, they've created that dictator. And unfortunately, karmically, they have to experience that dictatorship. And so again, en masse, again, they don't have to rise up in violence. But they did actually an experiment, I think, in the Philippines at a prison, where they had the prisoners do meditation and prayer every day, and the level of violence in that prison dropped 80% just in the prison. So again, it works. It works. It's been proved over and over again. And the situation right now is we actually stand, Roy, on a crossroads now in our history. I believe that these are the end days of the old order, end of days, where mankind, may want to continue their regression. But, the prophets of old and the prophets of new have described a new age of peace and enlightenment that will, because of the Mother Earth raising her vibrations, that will occur in the future, where there will be no wars, there will be no races, there will be no religions, there'll just be open land and sea, there will be no atomic bombs. All that will be dispensed of. But it's up to us now, either we change, or, according to my yogi master, those who don't change won't be able to handle these high vibrations that are coming within the next few centuries as they reincarnate on and off this planet. They will actually not be allowed, in mercy, actually, to stay on this planet, and they will be taken to another planet, which is in this solar system, but just outside, a planet called Planet X that the scientists have talked about. They know it's there because it's on the other side of, where Earth is. It's on the other side, so it can't physically be seen. But based on their calculations on the pull of Uranus and Neptune, they know that there is a planetary body that we can't see, but it is part of the solar system. And so those, those people who will not conform to this change, in mercy, will be taken after death to that planet to start the reincarnation cycle there, and maybe repeat the bloody history that they created 18 million years living on this planet. So that's another, I would say, a prophecy, but a dire warning for everybody now to either pull up their spiritual sleeves, make a change, or if you want to continue your bombing and murder and violence, then you'll have to do it somewhere else, because you won't be allowed to stay on this planet.
And with the reincarnation, because I remember speaking to, it's actually a few people that I had on the meditation show, like some were saying that you come back when you have something to do, but what's your thoughts on when you've kind of done what you've been sent to do? What do you believe happens?
Well, the thing is, my yogi master said there's only one reason we're here on this earth. First of all, he said we're not here to suffer. Okay, all the suffering, as we create our heaven and earth on this planet, and this planet is a beautiful classroom. It's a beautiful planet, spinning through space, giving us experience. He said there's only one reason we're here, and that's to raise the power of Kundalini from the base of the spine up to the highest psychic centers, go into deep meditation, deep states of bliss, of nirvana, cosmic consciousness. That's our heritage, not this pain and suffering we're creating. And then to eventually reach these high meditative states where we can actually ascend and break the cycle of reincarnation and move on to different planets, different spheres of existence. He outlined it in a wonderful book called The 9 Freedoms. If people want to study that, you can get that from Amazon, which outlines the evolutionary cycle of the race. And so people come on this planet, they have something to do. They do that particular mission, but the ultimate, graduation is eventually ascension, where you can raise the power within yourself up to higher psychic senses. And it's only then, when you've evolved and become an adept or a master, or a yogi master, is when then you can actually move on to different higher spheres and different planets. Not till then. And again, it's our heritage again to ascend and become the gods that we were at one time.
And because it's Pakistan that you came from, which is, I believe, a Muslim country, and that you're talking about. But I've got friends from all different religions. I don't look at them. I don't judge them by their religion. I judge them by their character and how they are, and what they actually do. Because they can say something, but it's what they do is kind of how I realize, yeah, they're going to be my friends, or I cut the ties and move on. Unfortunately, the way society is done, it's kind of got hatred between one religion and another, when in reality, I mean, I don't know, was there really these people? Because we're basing it on information that was passed on, but they all seem to be saying the same thing. Like you had mentioned earlier at the start, do not kill, honor thy neighbor, that you basically, they're kind of principles that they all kind of share.
Well, my interest in metaphysics and yoga and spirituality, kind of came to head when I was 16 years old. That wasn't being raised as a Muslim. Also, I went to Christian Church of England schools, so I did Bible studies and hymns and carols. I didn't see any difference between Islam and Christianity, just different cultures, different races, but selling the same principle, spiritual principles. And that's what the Orthodox, the elders of the religions have caused all this hatred. You can't blame the leaders of the religions. They brought the same teachings are in every religion, every race. And, even having this interest in metaphysics, I remember reading the book Autobiography of a Yogi at the age of 16 by Paramahansa Yogananda. He talks about his journeys through India. And it brought back stark memories of being in India in a past life, and it all came rolling through. So even my interest in metaphysics was probably, generated from a previous life. And so we bring these attributes from previous lives. We bring challenges, things that lessons we need to learn. And sometimes, people have to go through very painful lives in order to learn these painful lessons. But there's no such thing as punishment. It's all a teaching. And so if we learn painful lessons and don't do those things again, we won't have to go through those painful lessons. So I think instead of math and science, this is what kids need to be taught in school: is the law of reincarnation, the law of karma, the law of forgiveness. All these things, all these spiritual laws, uh, you know, not tainted by any religious ideology. Those are the things that kids that you're allowed to do whatever you want so long as you're willing to face the consequences. And coming back to what you said, I totally agree with you, Roy. We have been molded as children by the media and TV, and we've been hypnotized. But I think that cycle is breaking. And despite what these warmongers or politicians or people behind the scenes are trying to mold the masses, people are awakening. People are realizing, even in the pandemic, when people were in isolation, a lot of people quit their jobs because they saw the monotony of being a slave to the system, and a lot of them decided to do what they want to do instead of doing these menial jobs, being paid a pittance, and basically slave labor. So that's the message I want to give your listeners, that there's a message of hope, of inspiration, of truth, of light, and the ultimate call today, in these days of great change, is the call to service, regardless of race, color, and religion. We have to serve one another. We have to openly serve even the people we don't like. And one form of service is sending out that power, that healing energy of love.
Totally agree with you. And just like finally on the meditation or what, because some people, I'm noticing that there's a lot more getting involved in breath work, meditation, just being mindfulness and everything. But maybe perhaps for those that haven't, what would you kind of advise people to get started, not to go deep down? Because some people think you need to do an hour and you need your head just switches off and you're going to total blackness. Like, for somebody that's beginning, what advice would you give?
Well, basic breathing exercises is a good start. Yoga breathing exercises is an excellent book. The booklet that my master wrote called Contact Your Higher Self through yoga. There's different practices. Another one of my colleagues, Richard Lawrence, wrote a book with the master called Realize Your Inner Potential, where there's practices of meditation and breathing and mantra, which can be done safely in order to raise the vibration. So I think that book that they wrote was called Realize Your Inner Potential. And so there's a lot of videos on YouTube on yoga breathing or meditation that people can look at. If they're interested in sending out the light, I belong to a group of people from 30, 40 different countries. And right now with this crisis, we're sending out energy every day online. So people can join us. They can go to the website 12blessings.org, 12 being numerical, and send out this energy, join us, and no charge whatsoever. And so there's many ways that people can, if they don't know how to channel the energy, it's always good to do it with a group of people. They can go to my master's website, organization website, the Aetherius Society, AETHERIUS.org, and there's plenty of ways that they can go into prayer and meditation. That's from that website, the one I would recommend, because that's what I've been following.
No, excellent. It's all about spreading the love and avoiding the hate. So how can people get in contact with you?
They can go to my website, which is wajidauthor.com, WAJIDAUTHOR.com. And, again, for your listeners who are worried, there's so many people I'm talking to that are really depressed right now with what's going on. But the thing is that we don't have to watch the TV and watch the missiles blowing up the buildings. We can interact with that. We can send out the light on a collective, and we can stop this war or any pandemic or any famine or any earthquake. All these again generated by our own inactions.
No, beautiful, beautiful. So I'll make sure that I put all the links as well as the different books that you've mentioned on the podcast description, both on the audio and the video. So it's Wajid, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roy. I appreciate your time.
So that's all for the Awakening podcast. I'm also going to put this on the meditation podcast because it's kind of in line with a lot of the stuff that we discuss on that as well. So I'll make sure it goes out on both channels. So you can give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends. Until next week, take care.
This podcast is and always will be free. There are 2 ways you can help me, as I spend a lot of time researching, recording, editing, and marketing my podcast. I also have plenty of costs with like Zoom, BitChute, StreamYards, as well as equipment. I have a donation button, which you can buy me a coffee once a month, or even just donate €1, because if everybody who listens to the podcast donate €1, it would cover all the costs. You can also support our sponsors. All the links are in the podcast show notes. Thank you for listening. This podcast is sponsored by Coolabola, that creates simple and very advanced websites, as well as creating fantastic animation. If you or someone you know is looking to start or update their websites, we're offering a genuine 20% discount with the code AWAKENING. Just go to Coolabola, COOLABULLA.com, and the links are in the podcast description.